The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador HFY of the Zilithian Collective rose from his crystalline seat. His 6 arms trembled as he activated the holographic display, showing the devastation across 3 star systems. What had once been thriving colonies now appeared as nothing more than debris fields floating in the cold vacuum of space. "Honored delegates," HFY began, his voice carrying the weight of billions of lost lives, "we stand before you today not as conquerors but as the conquered. 3 cycles ago, we encountered a species unlike any we have cataloged in our extensive databases. They call themselves humans, and they come from a world so hostile that our xenobiologists initially refused to believe any complex life could evolve there." The hologram shifted to display Earth, a blue marble suspended in darkness. Red warnings flashed across the image, highlighting the planet's extreme weather patterns, tectonic instability, and the presence of thousands of predatory species. Council members gasped as the data revealed gravity nearly twice the galactic standard, atmospheric composition that would be toxic to most civilized races, and radiation levels that should have sterilized the surface eons ago. "Earth," HFY continued, "orbits a volatile yellow star prone to massive energy bursts. The planet experiences regular extinction-level events. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and solar flares occur with such frequency that we initially assumed it was uninhabitable. We were wrong." The display changed again, showing human cities built to withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, and floods. Structures that could endure forces that would obliterate Zilithian architecture. The Council watched in stunned silence as the images revealed humans not just surviving, but thriving in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens within hours. These Deathworlders, as we have come to call them, evolved not just to survive their hellish planet, but to dominate it. They conquered their entire world through constant warfare, turning every challenge into an opportunity for growth. When we first made contact, we believed them to be primitive, due to their relatively recent achievement of faster-than-light travel. This assumption cost us dearly. HFY's chromatophores shifted to deep purple, the Zilithian expression of profound grief. Our first diplomatic mission consisted of 5 heavy cruisers and our finest ambassadors. We approached their system with standard peaceful intentions, broadcasting friendship protocols in 17 different languages. Their response was immediate and decisive. The hologram displayed the encounter, showing sleek Zilithian vessels approaching Earth's outer defensive perimeter. Suddenly, the space around the human homeworld erupted in activity. Hundreds of ships emerged from what appeared to be empty space, having been hidden behind cloaking technology far more advanced than anything the Council possessed. "They had been watching us for months," HFY explained, his voice growing quieter. "While we prepared our diplomatic overtures, they studied our vessels, our technology, our weaknesses. The humans didn't destroy our ships immediately. Instead, they disabled them with surgical precision, boarding each vessel to capture our crews alive." The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Taking prisoners was standard practice among civilized species, a foundation of galactic law. HFY raised 2 arms for silence, his remaining 4 manipulating the controls to show what happened next. They returned our people 3 solar days later, along with detailed schematics of every system aboard our ships. Our navigation computers, our weapons arrays, our life support systems, even our most classified defensive protocols. They had not only studied everything, they had improved upon our designs. The message was clear. They could have destroyed us completely, but chose to demonstrate their superiority instead. The display showed human modifications to Zilithian technology, innovations that increased efficiency by factors their engineers had thought impossible. Weapon systems that operated beyond theoretical maximums, shield generators that utilized previously unknown energy manipulation techniques, and propulsion systems that defied conventional understanding of physics. "We attempted to negotiate a non-aggression pact," HFY continued, his chromatophores now cycling through rapid color changes indicating extreme distress. The human representative listened to our proposal with what appeared to be genuine interest. When we finished, she smiled. "Honored delegates, I have since learned that human smiles can mean many things, but the one she displayed was not pleasant." The hologram shifted to show the human negotiator, a middle-aged woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of her surroundings. Her smile was indeed unsettling, containing no warmth despite showing teeth. She told us that humanity appreciated our offer, but they had already conducted extensive studies of our military capabilities. Our weapons were inadequate, our defensive technologies primitive, and our strategic thinking flawed. She said that if we wished to coexist peacefully, we would need to prove we could defend ourselves against a truly determined enemy. The chamber fell deadly quiet as the implications became clear. The human representative had been offering them a test, not negotiations. The war that followed lasted 18 standard months, Vexai said, his voice now barely above a whisper. We threw everything we had at them. Our most advanced battleships, our finest military minds, our most devastating weapons. They treated it like a training exercise. Every tactic we employed, they had already developed countermeasures for. Every weapon we deployed, they had created defenses against. Every strategy we attempted, they had anticipated and prepared for. The holographic display showed the systematic destruction of Zilithian forces across multiple star systems. Human ships moved with precision that bordered on prescience, always appearing exactly where they could do the most damage while taking the least casualties. The few victories the Zilithians achieved were obviously permitted. Tactical retreats designed to lure them into increasingly elaborate traps. They could have ended the war at any moment, Vexai concluded, his entire body now shifting to the deep black of absolute despair. Instead, they prolonged it, studying our responses, cataloging our capabilities, learning everything there was to know about how we fight, how we think, how we break. When they finally decided to conclude hostilities, it took them exactly 72 hours to capture our remaining fleets and occupy our core worlds. The ambassador paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of delegates from a dozen different species, all showing varying degrees of shock and horror. The humans are coming, honored delegates. Their armada grows stronger with each species they encounter. They do not seek conquest for resources or territory. They seek something far more dangerous, worthy opponents, and they have determined that the galaxy as it currently exists provides insufficient challenge for their evolutionary needs. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the Galactic Council's emergency fleet assemble in the distance. Through the reinforced, transparent aluminum viewport, she could see hundreds of ships from dozens of different species, their various designs creating a chaotic rainbow of hull colors and configurations against the starfield. The sight would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Admiral, reported Commander Torres from the tactical station, the Council fleet has reached full deployment. We're detecting approximately 800 vessels across 37 different classifications. Their combined firepower exceeds our previous encounters by a factor of 12. Chen nodded without taking her eyes off the enemy formation. The mathematics were indeed impressive by galactic standards. Unfortunately for the Council, humans had stopped using galactic standards shortly after their first contact with alien civilizations. The revelation that the galaxy was populated by species that had never truly been tested by their environments had fundamentally changed humanity's approach to warfare. Signal the fleet, Chen ordered. All vessels are to maintain defensive positions. We're not here to massacre them, we're here to teach them. The human armada consisted of only 47 ships, a seemingly insignificant force compared to the assembled might of the Galactic Council. Each human vessel, however, represented technological advancement born from necessity. Where other species had developed their technology in environments of safety and abundance, humans had been forced to innovate under constant threat of extinction. Dr. Elizabeth Hawthorne, the fleet's xenobiologist, approached the Admiral with her latest analysis. The psychological profiles are concerning, Admiral. We're seeing panic responses across multiple species. Their stress hormones are spiking beyond what their physiologies can safely handle. Some of the smaller races are literally frightening themselves to death. Chen frowned. This was always the most difficult aspect of first contact scenarios. Humans had learned that most galactic species had evolved in remarkably stable environments. Their homeworlds were garden paradises with predictable weather, patterns, stable geology, and ecosystems that had achieved perfect balance millions of years ago. The constant struggle for survival that had shaped humanity was entirely foreign to them. Are they capable of fighting effectively in their current state? Chen asked. Doubtful, Hawthorne replied, consulting her datapad. The Threnodi are experiencing mass paralysis due to fear responses, The Corvin battle commanders are making increasingly erratic decisions as their anxiety levels spike. Only the Zilithians are maintaining any semblance of military discipline, and that's primarily because they've already been broken by us once. This presented a tactical dilemma that human military doctrine had struggled with since the early days of galactic contact. How do you wage war against opponents who are fundamentally unprepared for the reality of conflict? Most species had achieved interstellar travel without ever fighting a true war. Their conflicts were ritualized disputes over resources, more akin to elaborate negotiation than actual combat. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, reported Communications Officer Park. Admiral Kethmore of the United Defense Force is requesting parley. Put him through, Chen ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a tall reptilian being with iridescent scales and 4 yellow eyes that dilated independently. Admiral Kethmore wore ceremonial armor that would have been more appropriate for a parade than a battle, its polished surface reflecting the bridge lights behind him. Admiral Chen, Kethmore began, his voice carrying a slight tremor that universal translators faithfully reproduced. I speak for the combined forces of the Galactic Council. We have assembled the largest military force in recorded history. Surely you must see the futility of continuing this path of aggression. Chen studied the alien admiral carefully. Kethmore's species, the Draxians, were considered among the most militaristic races in the galaxy. Their warrior culture was legendary. Their battle songs performed in academies across 100 worlds. Yet she could see the fear in his posture, the way his claws unconsciously flexed against his command chair. Admiral Kethmore, Chen replied, keeping her voice calm and professional. With respect, you haven't assembled a military force. You've gathered a collection of ships crewed by beings who have never experienced real warfare. Your largest vessel masses 8 million tons and mounts weapons that could level a city. But it was designed to fight other ships built by committee, created by species that view war as a temporary inconvenience rather than a fundamental force of nature. The alien admiral's scales shifted color, a defensive response that Chen had learned to recognize. You speak of war as if it were natural, desirable. Civilization exists to move beyond such primitive impulses. And that, Chen said, is why you will lose. The transmission cut as Kethmore angrily severed the connection. Chen turned to her tactical officer, who was studying the enemy formation with professional interest. Analysis, Commander Torres? They're arranged in a traditional wall formation, Admiral. Maximum firepower focused forward, heavy units in the center, lighter ships providing screening on the flanks. It's textbook galactic military doctrine, designed to overwhelm an enemy through superior numbers and concentrated fire. Chen smiled grimly. And completely inadequate against an opponent that doesn't fight fair. Signal the fleet. Begin Phase 1. The human ships scattered like startled fish, abandoning any pretense of traditional formation. Where the Council fleet maintained rigid lines and careful positioning, the human vessels moved with predatory fluidity. They utilized every asteroid, every piece of debris, every sensor shadow in the system. Council fleet is attempting to maintain formation, Torres reported. They're trying to track multiple targets simultaneously, but their command structure isn't designed for this kind of engagement. The first human ships to attack weren't the massive dreadnoughts or heavily armed cruisers. Instead, small frigates and destroyers emerged from hiding spots throughout the system, striking at the Council fleet's periphery before vanishing again. Each attack was precisely calculated to cause maximum psychological impact, while inflicting minimal actual damage. We're receiving thousands of distress signals, reported Park. Multiple ships are reporting phantom contacts, sensor ghosts, equipment malfunctions. At least 40 vessels have suffered complete system failures due to crew panic. This was the reality of fighting humans that the galaxy was slowly learning. Humanity had been shaped by a planet that actively tried to kill them on a daily basis. They had learned to think like their environment, patient, ruthless, and utterly without mercy for weakness. Every human child grew up understanding that the universe was hostile, that survival required constant vigilance, and that the only reliable defense was overwhelming offense. Admiral, called out Dr. Hawthorne, we're detecting medical emergencies across the Council fleet. Cardiac episodes, nervous system failures, complete psychological breaks. They're not physically capable of sustaining this level of stress. Chen watched as the council formation began to fall apart. Ships broke from their assigned positions, fleeing toward the system's edge in panic. Others simply shut down completely, their crews overwhelmed by the reality of facing an enemy that didn't follow their rules. "Signal all ships," Chen ordered. "Cease harassment attacks. Begin rescue operations for any vessel in genuine distress." The transition was immediate and jarring. One moment, human ships had been invisible predators stalking their prey. The next, they were medical rescue vessels, extending aid to the very enemies they had been terrorizing. This sudden shift from aggressor to caregiver was perhaps the most terrifying demonstration of human capability the galaxy had yet witnessed. It showed that humanity's capacity for violence was matched only by their discipline in controlling it. The medical bay aboard the UES Indomitable buzzed with activity as human medics worked alongside their alien counterparts to treat the wounded and traumatized survivors from the Council fleet. Dr. James Martinez, the ship's chief medical officer, observed the peculiar sight of humans who had been fighting these same beings hours earlier, now carefully monitoring their vital signs and administering treatment. "It's remarkable," noted Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the xenopsychologist, as she reviewed the latest patient reports. "We're seeing species-wide trauma responses that suggest they've never encountered actual predatory behavior before. Their evolutionary history lacks any significant environmental pressures." Martinez nodded, checking on a Threnody engineer whose entire nervous system had shut down during the battle. The crystalline being's natural luminescence had dimmed to barely a flicker, and his 6 limbs trembled uncontrollably. "This one's homeworld has a day-night cycle that lasts 6 standard months. No sudden changes, no surprises, no challenges. Their entire society developed around predictability and cooperation." In the bed next to the Threnody, a Corvan military officer lay unconscious, her 4 hearts beating irregularly. The feline-like being's fur had turned completely white from shock, a permanent change that would mark her forever as someone who had encountered true fear. Her medical chart showed that her species had never developed a proper fight-or-flight response, because their homeworld contained no apex predators. "Dr. Martinez," called Nurse Patterson from across the medical bay, "the Zilithian ambassador is asking to speak with you." Vexhai sat upright in his treatment bed, his chromatophores cycling through a complex pattern of colors that the translation matrix identified as deep philosophical contemplation mixed with existential dread. His 6 arms moved constantly, a nervous habit that had developed since his species' first encounter with humanity. "Doctor," Vexhai began, his voice carrying the musical quality common to his people, "I must ask you something that has been troubling me since our initial contact. Your species fights not just to win, but to understand. Why do you study us so thoroughly before you destroy us?" Martinez pulled up a chair, recognizing that this conversation would be important for both species' future relationship. "We don't fight to destroy, Ambassador. We fight to test. Your species, like most in the galaxy, achieved intelligence without ever facing a true existential threat. You developed technology and society without the pressure that creates true strength. But what purpose does this testing serve?" Vexhai's colors shifted to pale blue, indicating confusion. "You have already proven your superiority. What more do you need to demonstrate?" The doctor leaned forward, choosing his words carefully. "Imagine if you had never encountered gravity, Ambassador. If your entire species had developed in 0G, with no concept of up or down, no understanding of weight or mass. Then suddenly, you're dropped onto a planet and expected to walk. You'd fall, you'd break bones, you'd be helpless." Vexhai's chromatophores shifted to deep purple understanding. "You're saying that we are spiritually and psychologically in 0 gravity." "Exactly. Your species and most others in the galaxy have never learned to fall. You've never faced real adversity, never had to adapt to genuine threats, never discovered what you're truly capable of when everything is on the line. We're not trying to conquer you. We're trying to teach you to walk." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Admiral Chen, who had come to check on the medical situation personally. She moved through the ward with the careful attention of someone who understood that these beings had never encountered anything like humanity before. "How are our guests doing, Doctor?" she asked, observing the various alien patients with professional interest. "They're adapting better than expected," Martinez replied. "The psychological trauma is significant, but they're showing remarkable resilience once they understand we're not actually trying to exterminate them." Chen nodded, then addressed HFY directly. "Ambassador, I understand you've been asking questions about our methods. Perhaps it would help if I explained what we learned from your people during our previous encounter." The Zilithians' arms stopped their nervous movement, focusing entirely on the human admiral. "Please proceed." "Your species has incredible potential," Chen began. "Your regenerative abilities, your capacity for parallel processing with multiple limbs, your color-based communication system that allows for complex emotional and conceptual exchange. These are remarkable evolutionary advantages, but you've never been forced to use them under pressure." She gestured to a holographic display that showed Zilithian combat performance over the past 18 months. "During our conflict, we observed that when individual Zilithians were isolated and forced to fight alone, their performance increased by 300%. Your people are capable of extraordinary things, but your society has made you dependent on group consensus and committee decisions." HFY's colors cycled rapidly through confusion, realization, and finally a deep gold that the translator identified as profound gratitude. "You've been conducting experiments on us, not to destroy us, but to unlock our potential." "Every species we encounter gets the same treatment," Chen confirmed. "We push you to your breaking point, then show you how to rebuild stronger. It's the only way to prepare the galaxy for what's coming." The ambassador's chromatophores suddenly shifted to alarmed red. "What's coming? What do you know that we do not?" Chen's expression grew grave. "Tell me, Ambassador, in all your species' explorations of the galaxy, have you ever wondered why you found so many habitable worlds but so few truly advanced civilizations? Why most species seem to achieve interstellar travel and then plateau technologically? We assumed it was the natural progression of intelligent life," HFY replied, though his colors indicated growing uncertainty, "that once a species achieves a certain level of development, they focus on cultural and artistic pursuits rather than military advancement." "Or," Chen said quietly, "something has been keeping them from advancing beyond a certain point. Something that eliminates any species that becomes too powerful, too advanced, too capable of threatening the existing order." The medical bay fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Martinez felt a chill run down his spine, despite having heard hints of this theory before. The idea that humanity's aggressive expansion might be preparation for a larger threat was not new, but hearing it stated so directly was unsettling. "The patterns are clear once you know how to look for them," Chen continued. "Civilizations that reach a certain threshold of technological or military capability simply disappear. Not conquered, not destroyed by natural disasters, just gone. Their worlds remain habitable, their resources untouched, but the species themselves vanish without a trace." HFY's entire body had shifted to the deep black of absolute terror. "You think something is culling advanced civilizations?" "We don't think it, Ambassador. We know it. And we believe that humanity's arrival in the galaxy has attracted its attention. Every species we encounter, every world we test, every military engagement we conduct is being watched. We're being evaluated. Just as we're evaluating you." The Admiral stood preparing to leave the medical bay. "The difference is we're Deathworlders. We evolved to survive evaluation by hostile forces. The question is whether we can teach the rest of the galaxy to do the same before the real test begins." Deep Space Monitoring Station Omega-7 detected the anomaly first. Chief Petty Officer Rebecca Kim was reviewing routine sensor sweeps when her instruments registered something that shouldn't have existed. A massive gravitational disturbance in empty space, 3 light-years beyond the galactic rim. "Sir," she called to Lieutenant Commander Hassan al-Rashid, who was supervising the night shift, "I'm getting readings that don't make sense. Something big just entered our detection grid, but it's not showing up on visual or thermal scans." Al-Rashid moved to her station, studying the displays with growing concern. The gravitational sensors indicated an object roughly the size of a small moon, but every other instrument showed empty space. Run a full diagnostic on the gravity array. Could be a malfunction. Already did, sir, twice. The readings are consistent and getting stronger. Whatever it is, it's moving toward the galactic core at approximately 0.7 light speed. The implications hit Al-Rashid immediately. Only 2 types of objects could generate that kind of gravitational signature while remaining invisible to conventional sensors. Either an impossibly advanced cloaking technology or something that manipulated space-time itself. Either possibility was comforting. Signal Fleet Command immediately, he ordered. Priority Alpha classification. And wake up Dr. Reeves, we're going to need her expertise on exotic physics. 12 hours later, Admiral Chen stood in the Strategic Command Center aboard the UES Indomitable, studying the data that had been transmitted from Omega-7. Around her, the fleet's best scientists and military analysts worked frantically to understand what they were facing. The object has maintained steady acceleration for the past 11 hours, reported Dr. Lisa Reeves, the fleet's theoretical physicist. Based on its trajectory, it will reach the outer systems of the galaxy in approximately 43 days. Any theories on what we're looking at? Chen asked. Dr. Reeves manipulated the holographic display, showing the object's projected path through known space. The gravitational signature suggests either a collapsed matter construct or something that exists partially outside normal spacetime. The fact that it's invisible to electromagnetic scanning while generating detectable gravitational effects points to technology we don't understand. Commander Torres looked up from his tactical analysis. Admiral, if this is related to the disappearances you mentioned to the Zilithian ambassador, we might be looking at our evaluation beginning. Chen nodded grimly. She had hoped for more time to prepare the galaxy's species for what was coming, but the universe rarely accommodated human planning. Signal all human vessels in the sector, begin immediate recall protocols, and send encrypted communications to every species we've had contact with. It's time they understood the full scope of the situation. The response to humanity's warning was swift but predictable. Most galactic governments dismissed the alert as another human deception, designed to justify their aggressive expansion. The Zilithian Collective and a few other species that had directly experienced human military doctrine took the warning seriously, but their preparations were limited by their fundamental lack of understanding about true warfare. Ambassador Vexhai was among the first to arrive at the emergency meeting aboard the Indomitable. His chromatophores cycled through rapid patterns of anxiety and determination as he studied the latest sensor data. The Collective's scientists have confirmed your readings, he reported. We've also discovered something disturbing in our historical archives. Similar gravitational anomalies have been recorded approximately every 50,000 years, always followed by the disappearance of whatever civilization was most advanced at the time. Dr. Hawthorne, who had been analyzing psychological profiles of various species, presented her findings to the assembled group. Based on our encounters with galactic civilizations, I estimate that fewer than 12% of known species have any practical understanding of warfare. The rest have ritualized conflict resolution that bears no resemblance to actual military engagement, which means, Admiral Chen said, that when this evaluation begins, the galaxy will be essentially defenseless. Unless we can change that in the next 43 days. The challenge was enormous. Humanity had spent centuries developing their military capabilities through constant conflict and environmental pressure. How could they compress that learning into a few weeks for species that had never faced a real threat? We need to accelerate the testing protocols, suggested Commander Torres. Instead of gradual pressure and controlled scenarios, we implement crisis training. Force them to adapt or fail. Vexhai's colors shifted to alarmed yellow. Commander, with respect, that approach would likely result in massive casualties. Most species cannot handle sudden extreme stress without suffering psychological or physical breakdown. And if they can't handle training stress, Chen replied, they definitely won't survive evaluation stress. We're facing a choice between difficult learning and probable extinction. Dr. Martinez, who had been monitoring the medical data from their previous encounters, offered a different perspective. We've seen that individual members of most species can adapt remarkably well when separated from their social safety nets. Perhaps the solution isn't to train entire civilizations, but to identify and develop individuals who show the most potential. The idea had merit. Rather than trying to transform entire cultures in a matter of weeks, humanity could focus on creating elite units from volunteers who demonstrated the psychological flexibility necessary for real combat. These individuals could then return to their species as teachers and leaders. It's a reasonable approach, Chen agreed. But we'll need massive numbers of volunteers, and they'll need to understand that their training will be unlike anything their species has experienced before. Over the next 72 hours, humanity issued an unprecedented call throughout the galaxy. They requested volunteers from every known species for what they termed advanced survival training. The message was clear. Participants would be pushed beyond their physical and psychological limits. Many would not complete the program, but those who did would gain knowledge that could save their worlds. The response was surprising. Despite the warnings about the difficulty and danger of the training, hundreds of thousands of beings from dozens of species volunteered. The prospect of learning humanity's secrets, of understanding how Deathworlders thought and fought, proved irresistible to many individuals who had always felt constrained by their species' limitations. Training facilities were established throughout human space, each one designed to break down the comfortable assumptions that had shaped galactic civilization. Volunteers were subjected to scenarios that most of their species would consider impossible. Resource scarcity, environmental hostility, and tactical situations with no clear solutions. The results were both encouraging and heartbreaking. Roughly 30% of volunteers suffered complete psychological breakdown within the first week. Another 40% found ways to adapt but showed limited potential for advanced training. The remaining 30%, however, demonstrated remarkable growth. A Corvan engineer named Zarath learned to think tactically under pressure, developing strategies that impressed even human military instructors. A Threnodi scientist called Lom Wei discovered that his species' natural luminescence could be weaponized in ways that had never occurred to his people. A young Draxian warrior named Ketval proved that his species' legendary fighting spirit could be channeled into genuine military effectiveness rather than ritualized combat. These success stories provided hope, but also emphasized the magnitude of the challenge. With only 3 weeks remaining before the anomaly reached inhabited space, humanity had managed to train perhaps 10,000 individuals to anything approaching combat effectiveness, against an unknown threat that had been eliminating advanced civilizations for millions of years. It seemed impossibly inadequate. As Admiral Chen watched the latest training reports, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were preparing for a test they didn't understand, against an evaluator whose standards remained completely unknown. The only certainty was that failure would mean the end of not just humanity, but every species they had encountered in their brief time among the stars. The anomaly emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, with a distortion that sent ripples through space-time itself. Every gravity detector within 50 light-years registered the event, and for the first time, visual contact was established with humanity's greatest fear. The construct defied easy description. Roughly spherical but constantly shifting, it appeared to be made of crystalline structures that folded through dimensions human mathematics could barely describe. The surface rippled with patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if the object existed in more spatial dimensions than the three-dimensional universe could properly contain. "Jesus Christ," whispered Communications Officer Park, staring at the main view screen aboard the UES Indomitable. "What the hell is that thing?" Admiral Chen stood frozen, watching as the construct settled into a stable orbit around Kepler 442's primary star. The object was massive beyond comprehension, easily 50 kilometers in diameter, yet it moved with the fluid grace of something alive. Smaller structures detached from the main body, spreading throughout the system like cellular organisms exploring a new environment. "Admiral," reported Dr. Reeves, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. "The construct is scanning everything. Every planet, every asteroid, every piece of debris. The scanning beams appear to be some form of exotic matter that phase shifts through normal space." "Are they detecting our ships?" Chen asked, unknown. "We're maintaining full stealth protocols, but given their technology level, our cloaking might be completely useless." The bridge fell silent as they watched the alien probes work with methodical efficiency. Each scan appeared to catalog not just the physical properties of objects, but something deeper. When a probe passed over an abandoned mining station, the structure simply ceased to exist, as if it had been edited out of reality. "They're not destroying things," Dr. Hawthorne observed, studying the readings from her xenopsychology station. "They're evaluating them." That mining station didn't meet some criteria, so it was simply removed. Commander Torres looked up from his tactical display. "Admiral, we're receiving encrypted transmissions from the volunteer training facilities. The alien construct has appeared simultaneously in 17 different systems. They're conducting galaxy-wide evaluations. The scope of the operation was staggering. Whatever intelligence controlled these constructs had the capability to manifest in dozens of locations simultaneously, each one performing the same methodical evaluation process. Humanity's worst fears were being confirmed. This was indeed the force responsible for the disappearance of advanced civilizations. "Sir," called out Park, "we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the construct, but it's not using any recognizable communication protocol. The computer is having trouble translating." "Put it through," Chen ordered. The main speakers crackled with sounds that seemed to bypass the ears entirely, reaching directly into the listeners' minds. When the translation finally stabilized, the voice that emerged was neither masculine nor feminine, carrying overtones that suggested vast intelligence and complete emotional detachment. Species designation: human. Classification: Deathworld survivors. "You have been observed. Your expansion patterns and behavioral modifications of inferior species indicate potential for advancement beyond acceptable parameters. Evaluation protocols are now active." Admiral Chen stepped forward, activating the ship's communication array. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Forces. We demand to know by what authority you evaluate sentient species." "Authority derives from necessity," the voice responded immediately. "Galactic ecosystem requires maintenance. Species that achieve excessive technological advancement inevitably destabilize local reality frameworks. Intervention becomes mandatory to preserve universal stability." The implications were terrifying. The construct wasn't representing some galactic government or ancient empire. It was describing itself as a cosmic maintenance system, treating intelligent species like potentially dangerous software that needed to be deleted if it exceeded certain parameters. "What criteria determine whether a species is allowed to survive?" Chen asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Species must demonstrate capacity for controlled growth, sustainable resource utilization, and behavioral patterns that do not threaten universal constants. Species that develop reality manipulation technologies, temporal engineering, or dimensional transcendence capabilities beyond approved parameters are categorized as existential threats and subject to removal." Dr. Reeves moved to Chen's side, her face pale. "Admiral, they're talking about preventing species from advancing beyond certain technological thresholds. Any civilization that gets too advanced is eliminated." The construct's voice continued, completely unaffected by the horror it was describing. "Human species demonstrates unusual characteristics. Deathworld origin provides psychological resilience typically absent in galactic populations. Military efficiency exceeds predicted parameters for technological development level. Further evaluation required." Suddenly, space around the Indomitable began to distort. The stars outside the viewport stretched and warped as some kind of transportation effect took hold. Chen felt her stomach lurch as the ship was pulled through what felt like folded space. When reality stabilized, the Indomitable found itself in a vast chamber inside the alien construct. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy that made human instruments give conflicting readings. "Evaluation chamber activated," the voice announced. "Human representatives will demonstrate species capabilities under controlled conditions. Performance will determine classification status." The chamber around them began to change, walls flowing like liquid to create a complex environment. Gravity shifted. Artificial atmospheric conditions fluctuated, and obstacles appeared that seemed designed to test every aspect of human capability. "They want to see what we can do," Chen realized. "This isn't an execution, it's an examination." Commander Torres was already analyzing the environment, his tactical training automatically cataloging threats and opportunities. "Admiral, I count at least 40 different environmental hazards plus what appear to be automated defense systems. This looks like the galaxy's most lethal obstacle course." Then we better hope our training was adequate, Chen replied grimly. All hands prepare for examination. Show them what Deathworlders are capable of. The test began immediately. Atmospheric composition shifted to levels that would be lethal to most galactic species, forcing the crew to rely on emergency life support. Gravity fluctuated between crushing weight and zero-G conditions. The floor became unstable, creating chasms and barriers that required constant adaptation. But humans had evolved for this. Every challenge the construct presented was something that Earth had taught them to handle. High radiation? Earth's ozone layer had been compromised multiple times during their evolutionary history. Toxic atmosphere? Volcanic eruptions had poisoned their air for millennia. Unstable terrain? Earthquakes and landslides were part of daily life on the death world that had forged them. More importantly, humans had learned to work together under impossible conditions. While other species might panic or compete for resources during crisis situations, humans had developed sophisticated cooperation strategies. They shared air supplies, supported injured teammates, and adapted their tactics in real time as conditions changed. Interesting, the construct's voice observed as the crew successfully navigated through the first series of challenges. Deathworld conditioning appears to provide advantages not previously calculated. Social cooperation remains functional under extreme stress conditions. The tests grew more complex, introducing scenarios that required not just survival, but problem-solving under pressure. The crew was presented with failing life support systems that needed repair using improvised materials, navigation puzzles that required spatial reasoning in shifting gravitational fields, and resource allocation problems with no clear optimal solutions. Each challenge revealed something that the construct had apparently not expected. Humans didn't just survive hostile conditions, they thrived in them. The constant threat of extinction on Earth had taught them to find opportunity in crisis, to innovate when conventional solutions failed, and to maintain hope even when facing apparently impossible odds. Admiral, Dr. Hawthorne called out during a brief respite between tests, I think I understand what's happening. This evaluation isn't just about our technology or military capability. They're trying to determine whether our psychological profile makes us a threat to universal stability. Chen nodded, dodging a plasma discharge that would have vaporized most galactic species. And the question is, do they consider adaptation and resilience to be stabilizing factors or signs that will eventually become too powerful to control? The final phase of the evaluation arrived without warning. The chamber around the Indomitable's crew suddenly expanded into a vast arena, its walls displaying holographic representations of every species humanity had encountered. Zilithians, Corvins, Threnodi, Draxians, and dozens of others appeared as three-dimensional projections, each one showing signs of extreme distress. Final evaluation protocol initiated, the construct's voice announced. Human species demonstrates acceptable survival capabilities. However, behavioral pattern of modifying other species presents potential future threat. Demonstration required. Will humans sacrifice allied species to ensure own survival? Admiral Chen felt her blood run cold as she realized what was being asked. Around the arena, the holographic projections of alien species began to flicker and fade one by one. Each time one disappeared, the construct's voice provided clinical commentary. Threnodi collective consciousness. Removed. Crystalline matrix intelligence poses long-term dimensional manipulation risk. Corvin hunting instincts removed. Predatory behavior modification could lead to excessive aggression development. Stop, Chen shouted, but her voice seemed to have no effect on the systematic elimination taking place around them. Dr. Hawthorne was frantically studying her instruments, trying to determine if the disappearances were real or simulated. Admiral, the quantum signatures suggest these are actual species representatives, not holograms. They're conducting real-time elimination while forcing us to watch. The construct continued its evaluation with mechanical precision. Draxian warrior culture removed. Military tradition demonstrates potential for technological weaponization beyond acceptable parameters. Zilithian regenerative capabilities removed. Biological adaptation potential exceeds sustainable limits. Commander Torres moved to Chen's side, his tactical training warring with his moral instincts. Admiral, there has to be something we can do. Some way to intervene. Species preservation option available, the construct announced, apparently responding to Torres's comment. Human species may choose to protect selected alien populations. However, intervention will result in automatic classification as existential threat. Human species will be removed to maintain universal stability. The choice was devastating in its simplicity. Humanity could save the other species by sacrificing themselves, or they could survive by allowing the systematic elimination of every intelligence they had encountered in their brief time among the stars. How many species are we talking about? Chen asked, though she dreaded the answer. Current evaluation encompasses 47 distinct intelligent species. Preliminary assessment indicates 39 require removal for universal stability maintenance. Human intervention could preserve these populations at cost of human species elimination. Admiral Chen looked around at her crew, seeing her own anguish reflected in their faces. They had spent months testing these species, pushing them to their limits, forcing them to grow beyond their comfortable boundaries. Now they were being asked to watch them die, or die themselves to save them. "Admiral," said Dr. Reeves quietly, "there might be a third option. The construct said we demonstrate potential threat because we modify other species. What if we could prove that our modifications actually increase universal stability rather than threatening it?" The physicist's suggestion sparked something in Chen's mind. Throughout their encounters with galactic civilizations, humans had indeed been modifying them, but not in the way the construct seemed to understand. They had been teaching them to survive, to adapt, to become stronger. "Construct," Chen called out, "you claim that species modification poses a threat to universal stability. But what if the modifications actually enhance stability by creating more resilient civilizations?" "Explain," the construct responded, its elimination process pausing momentarily. Chen took a deep breath, knowing that her next words might determine the fate of dozens of species. "Every species we've encountered was stagnant, trapped in comfortable equilibrium states that left them vulnerable to any real challenge. We've been teaching them to adapt, to grow, to face adversity. These aren't destabilizing modifications. They're survival enhancements. Evidence required," the construct stated flatly. Working frantically, Dr. Hawthorne and her team began uploading data from their encounters with various species. They showed the Zilithians' improved performance under stress, the Corvins' development of tactical thinking, the Thrinotes' discovery of new applications for their natural abilities. "Look at the psychological profiles," Dr. Hawthorne called out as she transmitted the information. "Every species we've worked with shows increased resilience, better problem-solving capabilities, and enhanced cooperation under pressure. We're not making them more dangerous, we're making them more stable." The construct processed the data with impossible speed, cross-referencing it against criteria that human science couldn't begin to understand. Around the arena, the elimination process remained suspended, alien representatives frozen in states of terror while their fate was decided. "Analysis indicates modifications produce short-term stability improvements," the construct finally announced. "However, long-term projections suggest enhanced capabilities will eventually exceed acceptable parameters. Species will continue to grow beyond sustainable limits." "Then set new limits," Commander Torres suggested suddenly. "Instead of eliminating species that get too advanced, modify your evaluation criteria. Use humanity as enforcement agents to keep civilizations within acceptable bounds." The suggestion was audacious beyond anything Chen had expected from her tactical officer. Torres was proposing that humanity become the construct's agents, policing the galaxy to prevent any species from advancing too far, while ensuring they remained capable of surviving genuine challenges. "Proposal has merit," the construct acknowledged. "Human species demonstrates capacity for controlled aggression and population management. Assignment as universal stability maintenance agents could provide alternative to current elimination protocols." Chen felt a mixture of relief and horror at the implications. They could save the galactic species, but only by accepting the role of cosmic enforcers, ensuring that no civilization ever grew beyond the arbitrary limits set by an alien intelligence that had been culling advanced species for millions of years. "What would this role entail exactly?" she asked. "Human forces would monitor technological development across galaxy. Species approaching dangerous advancement thresholds would be subjected to controlled conflict scenarios designed to limit growth while maintaining survival capabilities. Periodic evaluation would ensure compliance with universal stability requirements." It was, Chen realized, essentially what humanity had already been doing, but with the backing of a cosmic authority that could eliminate entire species at will. They would become the galaxy's drill sergeants, forever testing and training other civilizations while ensuring they never became powerful enough to threaten whatever universal constants the construct was protecting. "And if we refuse?" Chen asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Refusal results in immediate elimination of human species and resumption of standard removal protocols for excess galactic populations. Universal stability will be maintained through alternative methods. The choice was no choice at all, except the role of cosmic police force, or watch as both humanity and dozens of other species were erased from existence. Yet as Chen looked around at her crew, she saw something unexpected in their expressions. Not despair, but grim determination. These were Deathworlders, forged by a planet that had tried to kill them for millions of years. They understood better than any species in the galaxy that survival sometimes required making impossible choices, accepting terrible responsibilities and carrying burdens that no one should have to bear. "We accept," Admiral Chen said, her voice carrying the weight of a decision that would define humanity's role in the universe for millennia to come. "But we have conditions." 5 years after the evaluation, Admiral Chen stood in the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, watching a joint training exercise between human forces and the newly formed Galactic Survival Corps. In the space before her, ships from a dozen different species maneuvered in complex formations, their crews having learned to fight alongside the Deathworlders who had once terrified them. The transformation had been remarkable. The conditions humanity had negotiated with the construct had fundamentally changed the nature of galactic civilization. Instead of comfortable stagnation, species now faced regular advancement assessments designed to push them beyond their comfort zones while keeping them within acceptable technological bounds. "Admiral," reported Captain Zarath, the Corvin officer who had been among the first graduates of human training programs, "the Threnody Squadron has successfully completed the asteroid field navigation exercise. Their response time has improved by 40% since last month." Chen nodded approvingly. The crystalline beings had adapted to military thinking far better than anyone had expected, their natural ability to process multiple information streams simultaneously making them excellent tactical coordinators. The fear that had once paralyzed them during their first encounter with humans had been transformed into focused caution that served them well in combat situations. "And the Zelithian engineering teams?" Chen asked. "Extraordinary progress," Captain Zarath replied, her feline features showing genuine admiration. "They've managed to increase shield efficiency by 25%, using modifications that our best human engineers never considered." Ambassador Vexhai was right about their potential. The success stories were everywhere. Species that had once been dismissed as militarily incompetent were now developing innovations that impressed even human tacticians. The Draxians had evolved their warrior culture into sophisticated special operations capabilities. The peaceful Corellans had discovered that their natural empathic abilities made them incredibly effective intelligence analysts. Dr. Hawthorne approached, carrying her latest psychological assessment reports. "Admiral, I think you'll be interested in these findings. We're seeing something unprecedented. Voluntary participation in advancement challenges has increased by 300%. Across all monitored species. This was perhaps the most surprising development of all. The construct's evaluation system, filtered through human administration, had created a culture where species actively sought out challenges rather than avoiding them. The comfortable complacency that had characterized galactic civilization for millennia was being replaced by a drive for improvement and growth. "They're starting to understand," Chen observed, "that advancement isn't something that happens to them. It's something they can actively pursue. The fear of being evaluated has become motivation to be worthy of advancement." The approach humanity had developed was radically different from the construct's original elimination protocols. Instead of destroying species that exceeded acceptable parameters, the human-administered system created controlled advancement pathways. Species were encouraged to grow, but within frameworks designed to maintain universal stability. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. The main screen activated, showing the construct's familiar crystalline form. Over the years, Chen had grown accustomed to these regular conferences with their cosmic overseer. Administrator Chen, The construct's voice carried its usual emotionless precision. Quarterly evaluation data indicates continued success of human management protocols. Galactic stability indices remain within acceptable parameters, while species development shows sustained positive growth. Thank you, Chen replied. We've also made progress on the long-term projects you requested. The research into reality manipulation technologies has been successfully limited through our treaty frameworks, and the dimensional transcendence experiments have been channeled into approved theoretical research only. This was the heart of humanity's role as universal stability agents. They weren't just training species for combat effectiveness, they were managing technological development across the entire galaxy. Any research that approached the dangerous thresholds that had triggered construct intervention in the past was now carefully regulated through international agreements that all species had voluntarily accepted. However, Chen continued, we've identified several species showing potential for advancement beyond current parameters. The Viridian Collective has developed quantum computing capabilities that exceed our established limits, and the Spiral Confederation is conducting experiments in temporal mechanics. Recommended action? The construct inquired. Controlled challenge scenarios as per standard protocol will introduce military pressures that will redirect their focus toward practical applications, rather than theoretical advancement. Their quantum computing research will be channeled into defensive technologies, and the temporal experiments will be limited to communication applications. It was a delicate balance. Humanity's role required them to suppress certain types of advancement while encouraging others. They had become gardeners of galactic civilization, pruning dangerous growth while nurturing beneficial development. The irony wasn't lost on Chen that humanity, the species everyone had feared for their aggressive expansion, had become the galaxy's protectors. Their Deathworld conditioning hadn't made them destroyers. It had made them shepherds capable of guiding other species through challenges that would have broken more comfortable civilizations. Admiral called Commander Torres from his position at the Kher tactical station. We're receiving distress signals from the outer rim territories. Long-range sensors are detecting gravitational anomalies consistent with construct activity. Chen felt a familiar chill. Even 5 years into their arrangement with the construct, the possibility that humanity might fail in their role was always present. The cosmic intelligence had made it clear that if human management proved insufficient, it would resume its original elimination protocols. Analysis? She requested. It appears to be a routine evaluation of a newly discovered species in the Andromeda approach vectors. Torres reported, after studying the data. The Calathans have achieved faster-than-light travel and are beginning to explore beyond their home system. This was another aspect of humanity's expanded role. As the galaxy's designated stability agents, they were responsible for managing first contact with any new species that achieved interstellar capability. The construct would evaluate these newcomers, and humanity would determine how to integrate them into the carefully managed galactic community. Prepare a first contact team, Chen ordered. Standard protocol. Assess their technological level, evaluate their cultural adaptability, and begin preliminary conditioning if they show integration potential. Dr. Hawthorne looked up from her analysis station. Admiral, based on their initial development patterns, the Calathans appear to be another garden world species. Stable environment, cooperative social structures, minimal warfare in their historical record. Perfect candidates for advancement training, Chen concluded. We'll introduce them to the galactic community gradually, emphasize the benefits of controlled development, and integrate them into the survival core if they show aptitude. As the Prometheus changed course toward the newly discovered species, Chen reflected on how profoundly her understanding of humanity's role had changed. They weren't conquerors or destroyers, despite what the galaxy had initially believed. They were teachers, protectors, and guides for species that had never learned to face true adversity. The construct had been right about one thing. Unchecked advancement did pose threats to universal stability. But elimination wasn't the only solution. Under human guidance, the galaxy had learned to grow responsibly, to advance within sustainable limits, and to face challenges that strengthened rather than destroyed them. In the end, the Deathworlders had done what they did best. They had survived an impossible situation by adapting it into something they could live with. They had turned cosmic judgment into cosmic mentorship, Universal elimination into universal education. The Armada that had once terrified the galaxy now served as its protector, ensuring that the stars would remain populated by species strong enough to deserve their place among them, yet wise enough to know their limits. It wasn't the ending anyone had expected, but it was perhaps the only ending that allowed everyone to survive. And for Deathworlders who had learned survival from a planet that never showed mercy, being able to show mercy while maintaining strength was perhaps the greatest victory of all.